Hello viewers, my name is Adam.
And I'm here.
This is Seeking Me Productions, bring you another installment of Franchise Deconstruction. So we are going into the vast universe of Marvel Comics.
And we really are helming one of Marvel Comics' probably most famous and if not most beloved characters, that being of the X-Men.
And in this video we'll discuss those very core themes, what makes X-Men unique, some of their most famous runs of how the X-Men have evolved in a sense from a narrative, humble beginnings to very out there, heavy sci-fi fantasy eras, but still able to maintain the core sense of principles of why people have loved this very intellectual property till this day.
And of course, when we looking towards where is this franchise going to be going towards the future? What new elements can be derived and intertwined within these particular character storylines?
So, class is in session, people.
Yeah, get your books.
The publication history of Marvel's X-Men began in September of 1963. They were created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby as they sought to introduce a new superhero team after the success of Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. The X-Men is about a team of mutants brought together by Professor Charles Xavier, who realized that his kind is the next stage of human evolution. He gathered gifted teenagers to be his first class of students as he pursued a goal to protect and educate the next generation of Homo superior while pursuing a dream of harmony amongst mankind. The X-Men comics have seen mighty high records in sales, but that is a far cry from its beginnings. Throughout the 1960s, the comics were not among Marvel's most popular entries. In fact, the title actually was canceled by the year 1970 due to low sales. The characters would be featured in other stories in Marvel Universe, but not any solo adventures. The series would eventually get a reboot in 1975 with a giant-sized X-Men title written by Len Wein and illustrated by Dave Cockburn. This featured a new team led by Cyclops, who also led Professor X's first class to help rescue his previous members. This new team would include fan favorites for many years to come.
Mutants are otherwise known as Homo sapiens superior, or Homo superior in what is believed to be the next stage of human evolution in the Marvel Universe. The concept of mutants dates back in various smaller stories in the 1950s until the X-Men series made its debut. In the earlier years of the Atomic Age, it was once believed that the mutants were the byproducts of nuclear radiation.
Some would dub mutants as children of the atom, but despite this being a moniker in some factions, the nuclear theory was eventually debunked as the origins began to be more later described as genetic natural mutations.
It is documented that the reason for mutants existing in Marvel is for the particular execution of developing superpowered characters without having an explanation through external forces.
In order to get a new superhero, you have to think of what his or her power is. That's not too hard, but you have to figure out how did they get that power. And then it hit me. What if they're mutants? What if they were born that way? I thought that was brilliant, and I ran into my publisher.
The most common identifiable explanation to distinguish mutants from other superpowered characters is through the existence of the X gene. Mutants have this genetic trait that causes the mutant to develop latent superpowers or other physiological differences. The placement of such a gene is different within the multiverse, but in the mainline 616 universe, the X gene is discovered to be the 23rd chromosome in a mutant's body.
Mutant kind is vastly diverse and individuals with different genetic attributes. Since the beginning of X-Men comics, the mutant population has varied across decades. The highest reported population was said to be 17.5 million, but was then reduced to less than a million after the genocidal massacre of the fictional island of Genosha, which at the time hosted the majority of mutants on Earth.
In the comics, you will notice different groups of mutants within various levels of society. Some of these factions even have their own solo titles like X-Force, the New Mutants, the Morlocks, X-Factor, the Brotherhood, and of course the X-Men. These groups of mutants have varying levels of power classifications in 4 major categories. Epsilon level mutants. These are the lowest level mutants with significantly weaker abilities. Most mutants are born in this level, as their mutations are usually cosmetic with abnormal physical appearances or less desirable powers. Beta level mutants. These are mutants with the potential to have deadlier power sets, as their mutations can be used for combat and be a threat to ordinary humans. Mutants classified as beta commonly have abilities with caveats and limitations when they use them. Alpha level mutants. Anyone classified as an alpha has the potential to be global threats. They may have limitations to their abilities, but are quite powerful enough to cause large amounts of destruction. Omega level mutants. This is the highest official classification of mutants with near omnipotent potential.
It should be noted that there are many subcategories of mutants in the comics with their own nuances and placements within the hierarchy of mutant abilities. These are based on how far in the evolutionary process a mutant has undergone. In reality, the evolution of known species usually takes thousands to millions of years. Throughout mankind, there are people who are born with physical abnormalities, and depending on where you are in the world, people react differently. This is all within the realm of superhero fiction and by extension science fantasy, but if a mutant age were to happen, mutants will most likely be born in the Epsilon level. In the comics, mutants are among a vast variety of superheroes, villains, ground-level vigilantes, extraterrestrial beings, as well as a spectrum of gods and godlike entities. The stories told in this multiverse are as fantastical as they come, but fundamentally aim to be as relatable to readers as possible. One of the defining aspects that set the X-Men comics apart are the thematic themes of discrimination. Mutants are primarily written as a metaphor addressing minorities or disenfranchised groups. Unlike their scientifically engineered peers who are not born with the X gene, mutants are commonly the target of abuse and mistreatment in mainstream society. X-Men comics regularly deal with civil rights conflicts between mutant kind and the rest of the world. The reason for the extreme levels of discrimination mutants vary, with one major concept stemming from the belief that mutants will be the dominating human population on Earth once ordinary people stop being born. Humans constantly have tumultuous reactions with anything different from the norm. Being a mutant intensifies the struggles between the sexes, ethnicities, sexual orientation, and other marginalized groups. This theme is the backbone for most of the X-Men comics, but living through such trials and tribulations does not get in the way of mutants experiencing a life worth living. In the midst of the endless fighting between mutants and humans around the world, alien forces, and even amongst themselves, mutants do find time for life. You will notice through the comic pages and other media that other core elements that make X-Men such an engaging series are the relationships made throughout the years. Marvel is known for developing their characters with flawed, personable, and romantic traits, which makes for relatable narratives. These stories take on a soap opera element that grounds the fantastical stakes where mutants often find themselves in.
To better engage with the X-Men and understand their world, it's always good to read the source material. Mutant stories have changed over the years and different writers have made significant additions to the lore. The following authors have contributed the most towards the main series. Chris Claremont. This era of comics began in August 1975, starting with the Uncanny X-Men number 94. Claremont will handle this series for 16 years. In many ways, he single-handedly revitalized the X-Men in pop culture. After the successful relaunch in giant-sized X-Men, Claremont serializes the comic stories with overarching storylines across many issues and branching them out into different spin-offs from Uncanny X-Men to New Mutants, X-Factor, and also Excalibur. Joe Kelly and Steve Siegel. These two would headline the main comics for a short run beginning with Marvel's best-selling title X-Men Volume 2, number 1, back in 1991. That title, accompanied by art by Jim Lee, catapulted the X-Men's popularity in the 1990s as they dominated Marvel Comics across multiple titles.
Grant Morrison. In his era, the modern era of comics begins with the New X-Men issue 114 to issue 154. This period left many long-lasting effects in the comics where high-concept ideas were explored and introduced, like the second mutation concept of certain mutants being awakened. Joss Whedon. Before fading into obscurity, Joss Whedon had a very successful career in writing comics, creating TV shows, and of course directing some major Hollywood pictures. His most credited run in the comics is his work on the Astonishing X-Men beginning in Volume 3, Issues 1, after the first two volumes were only limited series. Volume 3 was an ongoing title. Brian Michael Bendis. Bendis would primarily write for the X-Men relaunch during the Marvel Now era with All New X-Men and also Uncanny X-Men that leads to the storyline Avengers vs. X-Men. The quality of this run of comics is amongst the most controversial in quality, but Bendis made a name for himself in X-Men years prior with arguably the most significant modern story as of this video, House of M. Jonathan Hickman. One of the most prolific cultural eras of modern X-Men was the launch of Hickman's run, who can simply be summed up as the Krakoan Age. This was a period of dynamic change in society, with the emergence of a new sovereign nation of mutants called Krakoa, which is derived from a sentient living island located in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We saw the rise and fall of this unique nation, and now await for the next big developments for the mutant race.
So as you can see, the X-Men has evolved very exponentially so in many decades.
There's been so many stories that has revolved around these special individuals, both the struggles they are dealing with within the society of man and the ones they're trying to develop themselves going forward in the future.
You know, what it means to be a mutant, as we have explored in this video, is very complex situation. I feel as though they're still trying to redefine it even till this day.
Yeah, especially when we look at the multiple different groups that are introduced within Marvel and how well the X-Men intertwines with a lot of those individuals in general.
But as long as the X-Men is able to always stick to those core themes of what it means, the struggles of being a marginalized society, and the very tumultuous world that we live in,
we will always understand what exactly does the mutants actually bring towards the human condition and how we understand it.
Because empathy is something that we can all strive to have.
It's always about being humbled, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Being humble. So there you have it. That was our first part to franchise Deconstruction X-Men.
Please look forward to the channel for more content just like this.
In our part 2 of the X-Men Deconstruction videos, we'll explore how we will adapt the series
We got some ideas, y'all. Some stuff that I feel as though is no-brainer concepts, but at the same time, if they actually ever get helmed, or at least if we ever get our chances to helm it ourselves, we would love to see just how well it really translates for everybody else.
Again, stay tuned for other content we have posts on this channel. Like, share, subscribe. We're close to 1,000 subscribers.
We're almost there. We're almost there.
Please be sure to subscribe here and notify when other videos are be uploaded. Our social media outlets of Letterboxd, X, Threads, Instagram are out there for us to connect with us.
See y'all later.
See you.